you need to know the society. So there is no resistance to something without the knowledge of this environment. No right resistance without deep knowledge, because you are not going to know to what you have to resist or what you have to change. So jihad needs knowledge. Knowledge of yourself, of course. I'm starting, the universal quote of Socrates saying, know yourself, of course. In order tomorrow to be better than I am today, I have to know myself. If not, I'm not going to know where I have to start. No knowledge of the self, no jihad in nafs, no personal, intimate jihad. Impossible. You want to change the society? Know the society. You want to change yourself? Know yourself. So jihad means resistance and reform plus knowledge as a condition of the process. So this is why when we speak about jihad in the West, it's very important to come to this deep understanding. And what we are talking about here is quite important. And this is why the words that were used, alienation, integration, and identity, are very important here. The second thing which is quite important is when it comes to the West, you will see that some of the challenges that we have in the West are common to what is happening in Muslim-majority countries. Some of the things that we are going to talk about are common. For example, in the book Radical Reform, Islamic Ethics and Liberation, it's crossing the board. It has nothing to do with Muslims living in the West or Western Muslims. It has to do with Muslims facing contemporary issues. And one of the critical questions is about ethics, applied ethics. How do you apply ethics in the contemporary world? And this is not only for Canadian or European or American or Australian, it's for all the Muslims. It's for Egyptian, for Turkish people, for everyone. We are dealing with critical questions. So some of these challenges are common, and some are very specific. They are very specific to our situation in the West, and this is why we have to understand the differences. To categorize the challenges is part of the solution. It's the work that we have to do. The third point which is important is to start our discussion by saying, I'm not talking as a visitor to the West, saying, you know what, I'm a Muslim, so I'm representing this outsider coming in Europe or in the West or in Canada to speak about the reality of the other. Now and forever, Islam is a Canadian religion. It's a Western religion. You may like it or not. We have no choice. And I'm saying this for both Muslims and non-Muslims and our fellow citizens. Because some of our fellow citizens, they don't want it to happen. Say, no, 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 you are the other. So they still speak about Muslims in Canada as the outsiders within. They are with us, but not really us. They and us versus them. And some Muslims, they are building a mentality which is a victim mentality, us. We are the victims of them. And both are nurturing each other, the rhetoric of the other, by nurturing this us versus them. And it's very dangerous. So I'm talking as a Western Muslim. And I'm sharing with the Canadian Muslim many challenges. I'm not a Canadian, so I cannot speak for what is happening in Canada, but I can share with Canadian Muslims some of the challenges that we have as Western Muslims. And I can also speak to my Canadian, to the Canadian citizens as also people with whom I'm sharing challenges as Westerners. We are in the same boat and we are sharing the same, building the same future and sharing the same concerns. So this is a statement at the beginning which is very important. Why? Because by saying this, we come with an understanding we need to get this sense of belonging to the West by saying we belong to these countries. These are our countries in the West. And for you in Canada, it's very important to start with this. Having said this, and I don't have a problem saying Islam is a Canadian religion and say you are Canadian Muslims. sides, so to speak, for people who are Muslims say, what are you talking about? There is nothing like a Canadian Islam or European Islam because Islam is only one. On the other side, some people are saying, this kind of Islam that you want is in fact an adapted Islam to the Western countries. And I would respond to both, no, you are wrong. Yes, there is only one Islam as to the principles. If you go through all the Muslim majority countries, you travel around from east to west, if just you go from Senegal to Indonesia, in the Sunni and the Shia tradition, you will find principles that are shared by all the Muslims. Al-Aqidah, which is the creed, Al-Ibadat, the 5 pillars of Islam, we all accept one Islam. And this makes it one Islam because we agree on the principles. And these principles are extracted from 2 sets of texts, the Quran and the prophetic traditions. We all agree on this. No differences. This is why we talk about one Islam. And this is why when we go to pilgrimage, all the Muslims feel that they are sharing exactly the same principles. This is it. This unity of one Islam as a religion doesn't mean that there is no diversity. Why? Because if you rely on texts, you will find here that there are many interpretations. So there is one Islam, but within Islam, many interpretations. We have literalists, reformists, we have Sufi, mystical, we have rationalists, and all these people are talking from within the limits, and they are all Muslims. No one can say you are not a Muslim, because they are within. So there is one Islam, many interpretations. And I had one question just before we came here, saying we need critical thinking from within and intra-community dialogue. So yes, we have many interpretations. But not only this, there is a second level which is very important. We have one Islam, many interpretations and many cultures. Why? Because if you go to Western Africa and you go to Ivory Coast, Senegal, Mali, you will find Muslims, they are as Muslims as the Arabs, but with an African culture, a West African culture. You go to Asia and you go to Pakistan, to Indonesia, or to Malaysia, you have Muslims as the Arabs, but they are Asian, with an Asian culture. And it's not a problem. And you go to the Arab countries and you will find that you have Arab cultures, not only one. The Saudi is not the Yemeni, and the Yemeni is not the Algerian, and the Algerian is not the Tunisian, and the Tunisian is not the Moroccan. And no one can pretend my culture is the only Islamic culture. The Arabic language is the only language of the Quran, but the Arab cultures are not the only cultures of Islam. And it's a very important point. Why? When we have this in mind, why should it be a problem now to say I'm a European? I'm an American. I'm a French by culture. Or I'm a British by culture. So we have many cultures with one Islam. It's not a problem. So when I'm saying European Islam, I'm just saying one Islam, but the U is the European culture. When I'm speaking about Canadian Muslims, I'm saying you are Muslims like all the other Muslims. It's a Canadian culture. And there is nothing wrong with this. Nothing wrong with it. And I can tell you something, that there are features in the Canadian culture that are more Islamic than in the Arab cultures. If you know the Arab cultures. Of course. There are things in the Arab culture that are not so Islamic. They are more cultural than Islamic. And sometimes we confuse all this. So why I'm saying this at the beginning? Because this gives us a sense of confidence. There is no problem with having a Canadian culture, being a Muslim, and having this interpretation. So in Canada, what we have is we have Canadian Muslims and Muslim Canadians with the Canadian culture now, with memories coming from Morocco, from Pakistan, from India, from Turkey. That's all good. And then you have many interpretations. In this room, you have people coming from the reformist tradition, from the rationalists, from the Sufi, some from the literalist tradition, and that's all good. All the interpretations are in Calgary. All the interpretations are here. I have even been told that some of the literalists were not happy with my presence.